Hey y'all, we're back at the Seminole County Museum, or Museum of Seminole County, doing the haunted tour again. They had to push it back due to Hurricane Milton, but I should be able to do it today. So, I'll see you inside. So, I figured out one of my camera batteries was having issues and kept turning off. So, the first, section of this video is corrupted because that's what happened when it turns off when it's recording. But there's this cabin in there, and I thought I saw something peer around the corner of it. But other than that, I didn't really feel or see anything there in that part. But I will be going back sometime soon-ish. So I'll try to stick around that area for a little while and see what's up.
Yeah. And this didn't have anything to do with the tuberculosis ward, right?
This actually was the site where the colored quarters was.
Okay.
So this was the white building, and then over here they recycled a wood frame building from a convict camp down in Oviedo, and they built it here in a panic in 1930 because they had an influx of people coming in after the stock market crash, ruined all their assets, who couldn't pay for their own livelihoods. And so they didn't expect to actually have African Americans using their public services, and so they, in a panic, just threw this wood frame building up, and that was the African American residence for the next 30 years.
Okay. Because you have some good stories about African American folks who have lived here
Yes.
and died here, actually.
Yes, and a lot of that is due to Rachel Lee, who wound up on the low key integrating the place in 1947 when she started treating people here.
Oh, that's
because there were rooms that were unoccupied, and so whenever she had a patient in here who needed decent climate control, like heating, she would put them in here. And at first she got protests from the white residents, and then she would sit down next to the white residents and say, all right, so we have two choices here. Either I keep treating you and you shut up, or I don't treat you, and then the problem solves itself.
Yeah.
And the problem solved itself. So, what a woman. So, yes, we did have African American residents in here as early as 1947. It was never officially integrated. It was always unofficial. But yes, we're going to visit one of those residential rooms right now, which is supposedly still haunted by an African American family.
Okay.
Word before we go in. So this hallway that we're going to go into was the site of one of the first instances that spawned everything. So in 2012, they had a big, huge paranormal investigation that is catalyst for all the stories that we hear regarding the paranormal stuff that goes on. And right here in this doorway, they set up a camera to look down the hall. And as they were setting everything up, the building was still lit, everything was going, nothing was plugged in yet, even. The camera that they had turned down the hall, there were two individuals there. Mike Mansell was one of them, and he told me the story. Paul Zaromsky was the other. And they described watching the camera by itself turn around to face the door and away from the hall. No one near it.
Coming.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing there. Just that 2012 investigation is what started the haunted tour. Essentially, they wound up putting all of the stories that they gathered into a PowerPoint, and then we took the PowerPoint and we scrapped everything that we couldn't verify, and then added all the things that have happened to us. And the haunted tour keeps evolving to this day, so you'll hear some stories that are old, some that are new, that have happened in just the last year, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
So this room here was once the abode of a fellow named Sam Abernathy. He died in, I believe, 1962. And he was one of the last residents here. He was an African-American gentleman that Rachel Lee had brought in. He was an amputee, and he couldn't walk around himself. He was a double amputee. And he was good friends with the caretaker's son, the superintendent. There were 2 nurses on staff, a surgeon on call, and then the caretaker was really the building manager. He managed the buildings and the farmstead, and he and his family worked on those aspects. They didn't really treat the old folks themselves. But Dave Scott, who grew up in the old folks' home, he was the caretaker's son. Sam basically taught him how to drive.
Oh, wow.
And he would drive Sam around to visit his friends back in Oviedo. And Sam felt it was just so funny that this little skinny white guy was driving him around in 1960s America. He had to sit in the passenger
Driving
seat.
Mr. Daisy.
Yeah, sit in the passenger seat like he was had his chauffeur.
Yeah.
And we had known that there was an entity named Sam here. Just because they brought in mediums and they said, oh, there's a ghost and his name is Sam and whatnot. We actually didn't find the name until we rediscovered the cemetery record in the museum's files in 2017, I want to say. And we found Sam Abernathy, 1962, and that was the only Sam that would have matched with Dave Scott's time here. So we were able to pin that to this room and like match all the stories, which is one of the reasons why this story is so good, because we can verify it and it's stayed relevant. Now, when Karen Jacobs was here, after 2002, they did renovations on this building. They redid the pebble dash, they resanded all the floors. It was a big restoration project. They also replaced a lot of the light bulbs with newer, brighter ones. And Karen Jacobs described for about 2 weeks after they finished the renovations and everything, she would come in every morning and that light would not turn on. So she would have to pull the ladder out, go up there, unscrew the giant bulb, giant bowl that's there, and screw the light bulb back in that had loosened overnight, and then put everything back and then continue opening. So after 2 weeks of this, she's so fed up. She stands in the room and says, all right, Sam, I get it. We know you're in here. We can't keep doing this. I'm not going to get this ladder out every single day. It was probably a little more colorful than that, but that's the PG version we can say for the haunted tour. So after she stood in the room and cursed him out for a few minutes, that never happened ever again.
You listen. Okay.
So we've never had a problem with this light ever since.
Sam's a gentleman.
Yeah, well.
He listened anyway.
He's a gentleman.
He listened to Karen anyway.
Okay. So this next room is our general store.
Just
2016 and 2018, where they tried to flesh some of those out. For instance, they believe there is a ghost of a Confederate surgeon in here, which sort of makes sense because we moved Dr. Norman DeVere Howard's bag into the medical room right across the way. He was a Confederate surgeon who wound up retiring and moving to Sanford and starting to practice. There was the story of the bean case back there.
Yes.
The mysterious
the bean
beans.
case.
Because there are no rats in this building that I know of. Knock on wood. We haven't had a rat problem in ages. And these beans, Kim Nelson, who took over in 2008 and served until 2016, she would come in and there would be beans scattered across the floor in the morning. And she would pick them up and then, the next day there would be more beans scattered across. That happens periodically. So that is one element of haunting that she claims is, a kinetic event in this room.
And you said it still happens?
I haven't had it happen probably in 3 years. Before that, it would happen occasionally, but it was only ever 1 or 2 that I would see. And
But the doors would be closed.
yeah, the doors would be closed on those. They're never open. However, I am still suspicious that it might have been rats that we weren't reporting. But I think that's it for here. One thing that I do like to emphasize while we're in here is the stuff that you have to watch out for. For instance, as we walk through here and into this room, you will hear
Oh, nice.
that case, right? So you always want to verify whether it is actually someone tapping in response to your questions or whether it's just a fortuitous misbalance of cash register or something similar.
Oh, that's a cash register.
Yeah, so this is a so that's not our story though.
It's a good one.
So our friend here, we had always thought that this
Maybe it doesn't
uniform
work.
was associated with this conductor's lamp, right? It's a conductor's uniform, conductor's lamp. They were in the same place, and we figured that this belonged to Mr. P.T. Meeks right here. And we had investigators several times tell us that, oh, well, someone's haunting this road. And whoever owned this road is still there. And so, we would, welcome Mr. Meeks or whatever, do whatever, acknowledge him on the haunted tours. We did a seance in 2019, and the medium who was in here kept saying, all right, I'm getting something for Lloyd. Do we have Lloyd? And my last name is Lloyd. And so I thought it was just them trying to, drag me into this thing because I'm just here monitoring. And so I stayed silent. I'm not going to engage with any of that. So they kept asking for Lloyd, and then later on we decided it was finally time to replace our mannequin with a nice Ethaphone non-store weird beard guy. And as we were pulling the uniform off and redressing our friend here, lo and behold, we find out his name was Lloyd.
That was his first name.
Lloyd Reynolds.
No one ever thought to look
No
there.
one ever thought to look at the uniform, but his name is
Lloyd
right
Reynolds.
there.
Okay.
And so it was always weird, like why were they doing Lloyd in this room of all the rooms? And it's
There he is.
Wasn't even about you, Bennett.
Nope, wasn't about me. Not everything is about me. I need to learn that. Okay, so
Especially when it comes to haunting.
right.
Yeah.
I tell people I still claim skepticism on most everything, and I am like spiritually dead. I don't feel anything. I never get scratched. I never get like spooky feelings or whatever. I don't sense any of that.
Well, that's good, because you're here in the dark a lot of times. Or semi-dark.
Right.
Energy-wise, the building's not very scary. But yeah, that's the only time. It must have been something that was borrowed. It couldn't have been from Jerry though, because I've been through all his stuff before. But that's the only time that I've been walking in the museum and felt like not safe.
So generally, stuff in this room doesn't move on its own.
That did.
Except for
This.
Yeah, I heard that sound
that
when
one,
I
that
stepped
one,
right there.
That one will be fine. This door shouldn't open, and yet I will come in here regularly to the point where I put this in front of it so it doesn't, and it will be open. And you have to turn the knob in order for this thing to open.
Right.
All right, but I will come in and it will, be like this occasionally until I move this thing here.
What is that?
It's a door. So
No, what is that thing that you...
It's like an iPad.
yeah, this is a little iPad. This is where I display the Fort Millen 3D model that we made, right?
Okay,
So this is
okay.
probably what Fort Millen looked like.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've put it in front of the Fort Millen maps that we've got to try and block this door.
And now it won't open.
Yeah, well, it'll open
Just enough to
like
touch
that.
the door.
And so every once in a while, I will still come in. I think the last time it happened was June, and it'll just be open one day. There was one time when I was walking through, and out of the corner of my eye, I watched it happen as I was crossing that threshold. And there was no one on this side, no one on that side, because I was walking right there. So I've seen it happen like by itself.
Well, not only is it you have to turn the knob, there's also the latch. Like
Yeah.
there's a lock.
Well, there is the latch, but the latch doesn't catch. I
Okay.
mean, it's not at least in this current configuration. You can force it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that door likes to open, and just speculating. These each used to be residences, and they used to have like walls and dividers, and some people might not realize that those doors are no longer supposed to work. So, speaking of doors that don't work, we can talk about
Yeah,
next room.
this is one of my favorite ones.
So this is probably the most bizarre event and the one that I can't explain. Out of all the events in the museum, this is the one that really is like, how does that happen?
Very physical.
Yeah, so not just physical, but also like weird in the I can't explain how they knew that sense, right? Like Lloyd Reynolds, sure, that's pretty weird and coincidental, but you could still see it as coincidental if the medium. Oh, I saw his business card was trying to get him involved, and then Lloyd Reynolds just happened to be the name on the hat. But for this one, there isn't really that kind of explanation. So this used to be the UDC section, and then this is the DAR section. The UDC no longer exists in Seminole County, so we've archived their materials until we can find out who actually owns them.
What does UDC stand for?
United Daughters of the Confederacy.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
They don't have any.
Any living members, no. At least not here in Seminole County. So we've archived their stuff because we don't own it. It's still technically on loan from the UDC, but we don't know who has custody of it.
Well, maybe the national one would do it.
Possibly, but we still have to go through all the channels to verify that. And so, in the meantime, we've put this on the walls for two reasons. Firstly, because it's a much better bridge into the Seminole War Room, describing the territorial period that preceded it. And also, the UDC stuff doesn't have anything to do with Florida. It's all stuff from Virginia and South Carolina. And there's one picture that I plan to put in the Civil War section when we do make a Civil War section, and we have a space planned for that. Nice. But we plan to use some of those artifacts that are relevant to our story here in Florida, but really it just didn't fit in the room. So, all that said, this room looked very different back in 2018 when this story happened. There was a table here with, the bullets and some books and artifacts on it, and then there was a large bookshelf, that stood right here in front of this door. A lot of heavy books in it, and a giant scrapbook perched precariously on top. And this door was painted shut behind it. Okay, so I come in March of 2018. It was it was Tuesday, I want to say, or no, it was a Wednesday. I forget the exact day, but. I came in and facilities was already here, the people who maintain the buildings, right? And one of them pulled me aside and said, hey, there was an alarm going off when we came in. We're just here doing the fire extinguisher inspection, right? And so they started off on that half of the building, and they had worked their way over to the kitchen by the time I arrived. So I was like, okay, there was an alarm going off. Which one was it? They're like, I don't know. So I checked the alarm panel, and I read, okay, it was a motion alarm. There was a motion alarm for the hallway right behind here. And so I started doing my walk through the building, and lo and behold, this door, painted shut, shelf in front of it, shelf is moved, and the door is open. And you can still see the scrape marks on the floor where this shelf had been dragged to the open position, right? Mm-hmm. Scrapbook still perched on top.
Oh my.
Other than the
Nothing damaged, nothing in the shelf disturbed, but the whole thing had just been bodily shoved open. No doors or windows had been triggered, and I was in somewhat of a panic because this room was the site of a robbery that hit the museum in 2005, where they stole about $15,000 worth of Neolithic points. And so I immediately turn around and check this window, which is where they broke in. Check the window, nothing's damaged, but this case has been moved, I notice. And there are scrape marks on the ground where you can see this case had been wrenched to the side, right? And it was kind of pulled this way. So the shelf was moved this way and the case was moved that way. And while I'm examining all this, I find something leaning against the wall. It's covered in dust and bug carcasses, and it's just sitting there. It's been there obviously for at least a decade. I pick it up, brush it off, put it in the library. I don't tell anyone I found it. And then after checking every room in the museum, making sure nothing's missing, there were no other entrances or exits, and making sure facility wasn't messing with me, I call the paranormal investigator group and say, hey, I have one for you. You want to come sit in a room and tell me why all of my stuff is moved around? Not my stuff, it's your stuff. This is a taxpayer-funded museum. But I feel very
All of these
possessive.
stuff.
I feel very possessive of the items in here because it's my job to take care of it. And now it's moved all over. They come in, they bring a medium with them, Teresa Earhart. And she comes walking up this door, up the ramp. She pops in here, and as soon as she crosses the threshold, she stops, points. You were supposed to find something behind that case.
Yeah.
Well, now that you mention it, I go over, I grab the certificate, this certificate right here. So this belonged to Maud Eleanor Ray. She was chapter regent of the DAR during the 1940s. She was responsible for a lot of care packages that went over to soldiers during World War II and so on. So I hand them that, tell them, okay, all right, figure out what she wants. I don't care. I have a job to do. I go check my phone messages. On my phone message, left there the night before, is a message from the current chapter regent of the DAR saying, hey, I'm going to stop by tomorrow because we have our 100-year anniversary in November of this year, and I want to know if there's anything in our exhibit display that we need to include. And so she shows up as they're doing the seance, and I have to sort of explain, hey, so this weird thing happened. We found this certificate, and then 2 weeks later we found her portrait, Maud's portrait. And so we've restored that, put it back on the wall. And then I think it was August, I come in and I find that certificate's been wrenched off the wall. Oh. And it might be because to this day I still haven't spelled her name correctly on the cap.
An easy thing to fix.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Never have the time. So yeah, there is not supposed to be.
Oh, I see.
There's
changed it.
Yeah, there's an
Eleanor.
Eleanor. It's
yeah.
Not. There's an A in there. Yeah. So.
They didn't use it for their 100-year anniversary?
They did, yes. They took these out and they displayed them on the table, and up until August we hadn't had any other problems in this room.
Now this August?
Yeah, it was this August that was pulled off the wall, and I had to do the whole wiring on the back and all that.
Oh my goodness,
so,
she's still here.
Well, she's mad that I haven't changed her name on the cap. So this is where the white folks had their television and radio and would meet with guests. The black folks were consigned to that porch, and then this would have been the white porch. Now, this room is the site of a lot of banging and footsteps and those kind of phenomena. So during, 2 years ago, Haunted Tours, Deborah Bauer heard some very harsh banging, like a hammer being struck on the floor right about here. And she told me about that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, Deborah, you like to, do things on your tour, that's fine. So then, probably 6 months later, I'm alone in this building, and suddenly, just from the volunteer office where I am, I hear bang, 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 bang. And I'm looking, and there's nobody in here. I checked the basement, I checked the roof, there's nobody. And I wind up calling Deborah and be like, hey Deborah.
We're right.
I believe you. Okay. Yeah. But we'll get stuff like that periodically. There's been many times where I've heard footsteps in the ceiling, like walking footsteps, not like, oh, there's a squirrel, because I know where the squirrel gets in. I know what that sounds like.
Yeah.
No, like someone is walking up there, and then I've gone into the attic and there's nothing. So.
Did anybody walk in the attic ever?
Yes.
Oh, there was a time?
There's a walkway right here.
Oh, okay.
It's just that no one uses it.
Yeah.
It's for the AC people to,
But they can stand up and walk.
Yeah, you can stand up and walk.
And the footsteps that you heard were like
the footsteps
here, right?
Well, the footsteps I heard were here, yeah. And so I heard some going this way, and then I heard some coming this way. And there isn't a walkway there. There's one here, and then there's a brick wall right here that divides it from that. And there's a place where someone's knocked in a portion of that brick wall so they can service the vent at the front here. But there isn't really wallable stuff. So it's, it's just someone trundling their merry way through the ceiling. Just for no reason.
Or they could be just
banging.
walking upside
Yeah, and
down.
banging and hammering and doing work. So yeah, I don't know what it's about, but it happens. So in this room, this is usually the hub for paranormal investigations when they're hosted here. So we'll usually set up a few tables. They'll put out all their equipment. They'll put their video screens in here, and then this is where they run the investigation, and then they'll go into each of the different rooms and feed stuff into this central brain, right?
Bennett, what are we watching on that?
So, fun story. This is...
We have video evidence now.
Yeah. So what we're watching in here was what happened when we brought in a couple of artifacts. We're not sure which one exactly triggered it, but we brought in a couple of different artifacts. One of them was a lawyer's briefcase from a very controversial figure who wound up helping prosecute Judson Luther Hobby, who is himself a very controversial figure. And the other was the papers from a business that just went out of business after 150 years in Seminole County, Chase and Company. And so the papers are on the floor, the briefcase is sitting on the table, and then at 8:10 that night, so it's going to be in about 5 seconds.
Okay.
We've never had this problem before. This doesn't do that. You have to jostle it, and it doesn't pull this way. You jostle it, and then it goes over a lip, and then it comes down. But that yanked it from here and dropped it onto the ground.
Okay.
So, what did it? We don't know. It's never happened to any of the other ones. And, we don't know what made it mad or whatever. If it is.
But you put it back up and it never happened.
We put it up. We put it back up. Neither of those artifacts are in this room anymore.
Oh.
So we'll talk about the briefcase a little later. That's in our county services room right now. But that's one of the most recent things that happened. That happened in, I think it was October. That happened right before Haunted Tours was supposed to happen. That occurred.
Oh. What happened to the artifact?
What?
They're in different rooms.
They're in different rooms. So the
they're
Chase and
somewhere.
Company papers we've filed, and they're off in I think the seg storage, the little building that's off the kitchen, and then the briefcase is in the county services room, and we'll visit that a little later.
Yeah.
So in this room, in the 2012 investigation that we were talking about, we've gotten some weird occurrences in here. They claim to have heard a lot about an entity named either Bessie or Betsy, who was a kitchen worker in here. I don't know if that's a verifiable story because the kitchen for the old folks was in there. And this was the domain of the family, the caretaker's family. So I don't know if that's a story that I believe, but they claim that she's pretty active
I
in
thought her name was Annie.
the building in general. Annie? Annie, I thought was a different one.
Annie was the wash basin.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's different.
She was also a cook.
Yeah. So people will get smells of biscuits and smoking through the museum, and the paranormal investigators in 2012 claimed that that was Bessie or Betsy. Now, another thing that happened in here was they were in their little brain hub over here getting ready for the investigation. Paul Zaromsky was sitting right over here and just watching them work because he used to write a paranormal magazine and he loved this stuff. He's now on our historical society board, and he tells me this story all the time. Just because he can. I'm a captive audience. I at the board meetings. So, but he describes how, as they were going around and saying, "Okay, is there anyone who wants to speak with us? Can you make your presence known?" And suddenly they hear tap 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 coming from the washstand, And they look at Paul annoyedly and say, "Are you doing that?" And he's like, "No, they're over there." And so they gather around this washstand and they start asking it questions. So, can you do that again for us? Tap, 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 tap. Can you do like a yes no thing, like 1 yes 2 for no? Tap. So they get responses for about 10 minutes out of this washstand asking it questions, and they look in it. There's nothing in there, but they keep getting, readings or responses from the washstand, and that they got the name Annie, and it was another one I think where they said it was a little girl. So
That was in there.
that was in there.
The one that dances.
Yeah, the dancing one.
Mhm.
They think it's the same one, I think. At least that's what I remember from the.
Oh, the one with the glitter on the floor?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that's happened during my time here, that was way back in 2012. I get here in 2016. I start hosting summer camps. Pretty soon after, like 2018, I think was the first year that I started doing it, and we would use this space as activity space, and I clean up afterwards, and then a week later I'll come in and half of my supplies are on the floor that I cleaned up last week, or that went missing last week, or whatever that I have the summer camp kids have taken home. And it's not like, oh, they were in a corner over here. It's like they were sitting in the middle of the floor. So that's happened a few times over subsequent summer camps, where I will come in and there will be like glitter on the floor, or there will be popsicle sticks, or there will be random craft supplies that either went missing or whatever. And when we did the games camp this past year, there were little extra game pieces that, like game tokens, that
So she's still playing.
apparently.
She's
So-
joined the camp.
Yep.
Permanently.
So the other artifact we like to talk about is, of course, this one.
Yeah.
This is our little red rocker that rocks by itself. Every museum has one. Story behind ours. I will say, I've never seen it rock by itself. Okay?
Oh.
I never have. Other volunteers claim to have. I have never seen it rock by itself. The family that donated to us claimed that it rocked by itself when it was back in their house. And it has a whole story associated with it. Have any of you ever heard of the I-4 dead zone?
Yeah.
Okay. So the I-4 dead zone is on the site of an actual cemetery. I've heard many stories like, oh, it's an Indian burial ground, no, it's this, so it's that, oh, it's that. No. So we've actually done a lot of research into this to try and piece out what it is. And we've got documentation for 95% of it. So, story is, when Henry Sanford had to get workers for his plantations, he couldn't use African American laborers. He tried that in 1870. They were massacred in 1872 in the St. Gertrude's Massacre. It was the first voting massacre in Central Florida. 70 people were run off, and a few of them were killed with shotguns, according to Henry Sanford's account, which we have in a letter that he sent to his son. After that, he couldn't get black workers to work his groves. They had to be white. Otherwise, they would have the same problem again. However, what he did do was he started putting real protections around incorporated African American communities. It's why Goldsboro and Eatonville were in the north side of Orange County, because they were close to Henry Sanford's protection. All right. Same with Georgetown. Georgetown is an independent district. It was never incorporated, but Henry Sanford established that for their protection. So they had their own places of business. They had their own voting centers. And they wouldn't be touched by the folks in Mellonville, right? So all of that gets started under Henry Sanford. But they can't work as orange groves, because if they start working as orange groves, then the white laborers get mad and massacres happen. So he brings in people from Europe, Swedish, Germans, Slavs, right? So we have Slavia, we have Uppsala, and we have St. Joseph's Catholic colony, which was a group of Catholic Germans. There were probably about 30 of them, came over from Germany, and none of them spoke English. They were called the Dutchmen because when someone asked, hey, what are you? Deutsch. So no one knows what that is. So we have a few newspaper records where it's like, oh, the Dutch cemetery over there. But it was the German Catholic cemetery. So they're there in 1887 when yellow fever hits Florida. Tampa is the hub of yellow fever. Officially, Sanford never had yellow fever. Whenever you see the massive amount of fever deaths that were going on in that period, it was always reported as something like bilious fever, or brain fever, or pneumatic fever. Anything but yellow fever. Because if it was yellow fever, then Sanford would get quarantined and all of its shipping would go to Enterprise, the rival port. Which actually led to a very funny exchange where Sanford claimed Enterprise had yellow fever just to get it shut down so all of its shipping would come to Sanford. And then as soon as Enterprise was proven by the Board of Health not to have yellow fever, they did the same thing to Sanford, and that was closed down, and it resulted in a back and forth that lasted for months. So, all the funny stuff aside, back to the tragedy. The quarantine was handled by the rail system. Everything was. The plant hospital was the only hospital in Seminole, what is now Seminole County at that time. It was Orange County then. And the railroad was responsible for all of the quarantining, hiring all of the doctors. That was all handled by a private company. And they established a quarantine camp along the rail line. The quote was 6 miles west of Sanford, around where St. Joseph Catholic Colony is. And so it was right there. We have a rail line that goes out that way, and we have the plan of the quarantine camp, so we know it was pretty extensive. We don't know exactly where it was, but it was near St. Joseph somewhere, directly west on what is now 46, as it was described in the papers. So all of the fever patients, anyone who gets on the rail line and is discovered to have fever or symptoms, goes to this quarantine camp. Anyone who's discovered in Sanford goes to this quarantine camp. And so it becomes this cesspool of sickness for the several months it's in operation in 1887. Which means that, it's going to infect the closest communities. So St. Joseph's Catholic Colony, of course, gets hit by fever. Now, they are without a priest when people start dying, because the priest, Father Felix Prosper Svenberg, had felt a calling in his heart to go to Tampa and minister to the sick and dying there, only to die himself in October of yellow fever. So that left this entire area without a priest, because he was the only itinerant priest who would go from All Souls to St. Joseph's, down to Altamont, down to Oviedo, wherever there was a Catholic community. He would go into circuit and preach there, right? So not only are these German colonists starting to die and no one understands what they're saying, so they can't really get treated, but they also are buried without last rites. Now, take that already ghost story material and then add in what happens next. The field itself, once St. Joseph's disappears, the field is bought by a fellow named Albert Hawkins. And Hawkins, there's a report of knowing where the cemetery is, and there is a report of a farmhand in 1921 that he forgets to tell about the cemetery and who plows over it one day because it's surrounded by his crop fields. That night, his house burns down, and this is the only piece of furniture to survive that fire. And that's a picture of Gladys Hawkins, his daughter, with the red rocker 2 years before the fire hits. And you can still see evidence of the fire on this. There are still, that's why it was turned around, there's still black char that you can see underneath the paint, particularly on the back here. Because it was the only piece of furniture to survive, and later on the family reports that it used to rock by itself, along with some other instances where furniture moved around their house.
So Alice died.
Which one?
Alice, the little girl?
Gladys. Gladys did not die in the fire. She lived on and wound up telling this story to her grandson, a fellow named Charlie Carlson. Charlie Carlson is most famous for his book Weird Florida.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
and he's gone now, too.
He is gone now, yes. He's passed away. But originally, he was a very competent and capable historic researcher. And he first published this story and the documentation of the people in that cemetery in a 1991 Florida genealogist article describing the St. Joseph's Catholic Colony Cemetery. But he was never really taken seriously. And so that wound up spinning into the weird and strange in Florida. Now, the problem with the Hawkins family is they were eminent domained in 1957. And we're getting to the
The I-4.
the I-4 part of this story. So they were eminent domain in 1957, and they were promised that the bodies would be moved. Florida law is that you have to move the bodies, right? A licensed mortician or funeral director has to oversee it, and they have to be moved to another cemetery. That never happened. In 1960, when I-4 was built, they just poured fill dirt over the graves. And that is the day that Donna took its rightward turn and then plowed over the state. And that's when the association between the I-4 dead zone and hurricanes starts. And so every time there's road work on that section of I-4, we get Matthew or Irma or whatever it is this year. That is the first weird thing that goes on over there. People describe ghosts and paranormal phenomena. Again, the horse ghost has been described as appearing on I-4. I had one trucker who came in, and when I started talking about this, he swore on his mother's grave that one time when he was crossing over I-4, the tool chest in the back of his truck lifted up and the tools started scattering out of it, floating in the air, and then as soon as he crossed the river, it smashed down. And he like swore it up and down, and I'm like, okay, great, I believe you. I'll add it to the tour, it's fine. Back then. The very first crash on I-4 happened over that spot. It was a shrimp truck that jackknifed and plowed into oncoming traffic, killing both drivers.
Shrimp.
Yeah, shrimp. It was hauling shrimp. Back then, the lanes were together. The oncoming north and south.
Because it was just 2 lanes?
Yeah, it was 4 lanes right next to each other. And that was the first crash that happened on I-4, and we've had constant reports of, there are more crashes on this part of I-4 than anywhere else on I-4. Well, a 2012 FDOT study proved that was not true. There are no more crashes on that section than on any other particularly dangerous section of I-4, so it's within that bell curve. What they couldn't understand was why the fatalities were so much higher. There are more fatal crashes in that section of I-4 than proportionally there should be. So whether you believe that's because it's a rise going into a blind hill, or whether that's a sun factor, or whether it's ghosts running out in front of your car, I don't know. That's not for me to decide.
But the people are dead that might.
Yeah. So, but I know to avoid that spot. Actually, when I gave a talk on Central Florida's haunted sites, Seminole County's haunted sites, on the Barbara Lee just 2 weeks ago, on my way there were people who missed the boat because there had been a fatal crash over the I-4 dead zone, and the traffic was backed up so far, and they were just locked in. So, yeah. So, still a lot of superstition over that spot. All right, that concludes it for this section.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't? Go ahead, Jamie, take it away.
All right, so a couple years ago, I was in here, in that room where we saw the video footage of the light. I was at the computer doing some research, and it was only me and one other volunteer in the whole museum. Then it was out running errands. The other volunteer was in the volunteer office at the front of the museum. We didn't have any music playing or anything. No sound, just chilling out. And all of a sudden, coming from around, it sounded like this area, like this spot. I just hear like a man's voice go, "Hey!" And I was like, oh. Because I've had a lot of encounters, especially in this museum, but I've never heard like a verbal communication. So I kind of sat at the computer, I was like, did I hear that? And I started going through like, okay, it could be outside. And no, because I've never heard any, unless they're at the window, right. Which they wouldn't be. There's nothing there. Can't be Laura. Laura doesn't sound like a man, it's the opposite direction. So I finally get up and I came and took a look around here and I started looking through the whole room. The only thing I saw out of place was this screen door that's outside the kitchen door here. Has always been latched. But that day it was kind of like flopping in the wind. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm just absolutely crazy, and that was just the sound of a door banging, and for some reason it sounded like birds. I don't know. So Bennett finally comes back maybe an hour later, and I told him what happened, and this is the only time that it seemed like Bennett was interested in it. Because usually I tell him ghost stories, and he's like, yeah, sure, okay. But this was the only time I told him, and he was like, huh, and he just walked away and came over to the door, and he looks at it, and he's like, that's been lashed as long as I've been here, which was like 2016. I think this was like 2021 maybe. Yeah. And it's the kind of lash where it's like the little hook and
eye?
Yeah, hook and eye, thank you.
Hook and eye, and it's on the inside.
Yeah. So, and it was maybe a breeze outside, but it wasn't stormy by any means or super windy. I mean, if it's gone through multiple hurricanes, I don't think a normal breeze is gonna
not been
open it. So, I mean, I like to think that someone came from outside, said hi to me, and I didn't respond because I was in shock. And they just left.
Aw.
But yeah, nothing has happened since, although I kind of wish it would.
Well, I remember some volunteers, it was the second year of your ghost tours, that described orbs. They had seen orbs.
So we have a lot of, video where we'll occasionally get something that could be an orb or an insect, I don't know.
A really big insect.
We had Abigail Florida, who's been on a few tours with us, and she described seeing orbs. She's described how she felt like one went from this room and then it followed the curvature of this room and then like went through her, and then she felt like it didn't seem malicious, it just felt like it was saying hi, I'm here. But yeah, so that did happen in this area, and then Jamie has an account of Mary, which we'll discuss in the next room. So.
Okay. What about the piano? I remember there was a piano story. Are we not doing the piano story?
I don't remember a piano
guitar
story.
or the piano?
There was a guitar that fell over.
Oh, this one, yeah.
And the chest closed, I think.
Yeah, so on, there was maybe the 2021 tour, we had this chest that slammed shut, and then this guitar fell over. But,
that's an oldie.
What?
During the tour.
I said that's an oldie, that story.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Okay.
Good memory.
Yeah, that's one I didn't remember.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right in here?
Yep. Oh, you guys moved some dolls, I think?
What?
Did you move some dolls? It doesn't look like there's quite as many as there was last time.
Yeah, we've done a lot of shuffling in the back room. These are all the boxes that we could find that were immediately accessible. So, yes, there are more dolls, but they're not all.
I remember a lot more.
I was going to say, and some of these now are Indian dolls.
Yeah, we did pull out some of the Seminole dolls. All right. I'm going to let Jamie take over this room since this is her friend.
Yeah, Benny, go away. She's mad at you.
Yeah, nothing will happen if Bennett's here.
No, it won't. Hi.
This is Crystal.
Hi.
Crystal.
She's also had encounters in this room.
So you can see her too, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Alright, so this is our Victorian parlor room. This is my personal favorite room. This is my comfort zone. A lot of people
Mary loves you.
Yes. A lot of people are freaked out by the dolls, but I think this is like the friendliest, nicest ghost unless you're Bennett.
Well, there's a reason for that.
Yes. So, we have a ghost in here named Mary. She is a young lady, not a little girl, a young lady. And we had some paranormal investigators in here. What year was it? Like 2013? 2013.
I don't know. I put my notes out.
No, you're good. I've done this so many times.
I mean, so have I, but you think I can remember anything?
Yeah. The dates get blurry. So in about 2013, there was a paranormal investigation in here. And they discovered a ghost of a girl named Mary, and they said, okay, are you okay? Do you need anything? And she said, I would like a hairbrush. And they're like, okay. So they went out and they got some little plastic hairbrush from Dollar Tree or something and brought it back in here, put it on the table, and they're like, we did good, and then left. About a year later, they came back and were investigating again, and they said, Mary, we're back. How are you doing? Do you need anything? You still okay? She said, they didn't have plastic when I was around. I don't know what this is. I would like a wooden one, please. So they replaced it with a wooden hairbrush, and then that became the staple of this room. Obviously, this is not wooden. We'll get to that point. But it would sit here where this brush is now, and it would periodically, from time to time, sometimes, I think there's a couple times on haunted tours,
It would
where
just
between
randomly
tours
move.
it would be moved.
Yeah.
So it would move, here, or there, or over there, and just kind of became the thing. It was attached to Mary. Mary was attached to it. And then, what was it, last year? 2 years ago. I believe, 2 years ago. Bennett was
21.
in here. Yeah.
21?
What year are we in? 24.
We're in 24.
So,
3 years.
yeah. It's a blur.
Numbers.
Bennett was moving things around and he packed some stuff up to put it into storage because we were doing a Victorian morning exhibit in here and he just didn't think that a brush fit with that exhibit. I think he should have left it. He should have left it.
Really
You could have just put it behind the lamp or something. But
just behind the clock.
yeah. So he put a mantle clock there, stopped at 9:10, just random. Keep that in mind, 9:10. That comes up later. So he puts the brush in a box, puts it in storage in the kitchen across the hall, and later on, was it the same day?
Same night.
Same night.
He was working late. He
Yeah.
was typing up a report in the office.
He being Bennett.
And at 9:10 at night, he hears this big crash. And in the room across the hall, which we should be going into here in a couple of minutes, there were a bunch of poster boards and the stands for them and everything. Oh, we're going in there here in a minute.
Oh, it is open.
Yeah.
But there were a bunch of poster boards and things leaned up against the wall. That had been leaned up against the wall for a few years that were suddenly, not just they fell, but they fell. And like, that's the one.
And it was exactly at 9:10 p.m. So that was that same night. Then later, once the morning exhibit is packed up and gone, Bennett goes to put stuff back in the room and mysteriously the hairbrush is gone. Has never been found. It's been years. It is just poof. So, Mary is very upset about that.
Oh, she angry.
Because she asked for one thing. She wanted one thing.
And she was happy
And
with
he took
that
it.
brush. She really liked that brush. She was very attached to that particular
It was
brush.
her thing.
Would you touch your wife's hairbrush ever? No. Would you die a horrible death if you touched your wife's hairbrush ever? So you see what's happening here.
Especially at night.
Right?
Like, not just someone that you can get at
The
Walmart.
favorite brush.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, still never found that. She's very mad at Bennett. Usually she won't act up if Bennett's around, just out of defiance.
I was leading one of the tours last year and Bennett was with me and he had been with us through the whole tour. We got into this room, we spent a few minutes, we went through the story, started trying to investigate, trying to get Mary to respond. She was super responsive last tour, by the way.
We should try something.
Oh, she was setting off the EMF readers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, she was over here.
Or this one might be.
So, but she was,
No, the light wouldn't be that bright if it was low battery.
but she was setting them off, and but she would do nothing, and finally Bennett was like, "Fine, I'm going." She's mad at me. I'm going, and he walked up down the hall. As soon as he walked down the hall, the flashlights started going, and EMF readers. We got pictures of orbs. We spent probably 20 minutes in here. We were late finishing the tour because she was just all over the place. It was great.
Yeah.
Bennett came back in the room.
Yep.
She won't talk.
She's mad.
And he did try to appease her with the it is a nice, metal
Very
hairbrush.
period appropriate.
Very
Metal
period appropriate.
handle.
I don't think she cares for it as much.
It's not
Which-
wooden.
We're now trying to
Yeah.
find her a wooden hairbrush replacement. We're gonna collaborate.
The wooden hairbrush and the one that was that horsehair or boar bristle?
I think it was war
The boar bristle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I like,
No, the
Or bristle.
An Amish community might have such a thing, wouldn't they?
Perhaps.
Theoretically,
I don't know where they are, but we'll find them.
they're on the interwebs. They sell things on the interwebs.
Okay, great.
I mean, technically, they're not on the internet, but you know.
They give it to someone that will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
A neighbor. Aside from the hairbrush debacle, in 2019 it was my very first Rona tours. This is a picture of me, a baby me, many years ago,
Back in the day.
way back when.
yeah.
This was actually taken by Crystal. So we were sitting here after the tours had completed, and we had a photo op much like this, which you guys will get a chance to take a picture in a moment if you want. I sat down on the couch, and at that point, I had never had any confirmation of Mary existing, but I heard the story about the hairbrush, and I was like, I like her, and I love this room. So I was like, we're friends. And so I sat down on the couch, and I said, Mary, if you're in here, can you get in the picture, please? And Crystal and my mom were standing right about there. Both took a picture.
I was right here, and your mom was like right here.
Yeah. Both took a picture about the same time. And Crystal's is this one, had the orb. My mom's didn't have anything in it, but had the orb right by my dress. As soon as I said that.
Oh, okay.
And we had taken pictures. We had taken pictures with me. Nothing had happened. We had taken 3 or 4 pictures with Jamie. Nothing had happened as soon as she asked.
There she was.
So I took that as confirmation of our friendship, and it's blossomed since then. So, unfortunately, I am a full adult now, and I have a full-time job, and I can't get to the museum as much as I would like to. So I apologize to Mary. I do wish I could see her more. But about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I got a text from Bennett that said, hey, some of the volunteers have set up a seance in Mary's room. They're going to try and talk to her. And I said, okay, well, tell her that I miss her, and I'm sorry I haven't been around in a while, and I'm going to try to get there soon. He said, okay. About 20 minutes later, I get a text from him. He's like, so I delivered your message. And as soon as I did, the lights, the room lights, not the flashlights, dimmed and then got brighter. So I think she missed me too. But yeah,
Mary's a sweetheart.
that's pretty much it with Mary. Does anyone want to take a picture?
Yeah.
We can see if we get any orbs, any interactions
Ed,
from
you
Mary.
wanna do the honors with your...
I'll be glad to,
Okay.
if I've still got juice, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to have a
Yeah.
seat.
You have more than mine.
And then you can say that you sat on a Victorian couch.
It's different dolls now, though.
Yes.
And now there's a teddy bear.
Slightly less creepy.
Aw, well, so I suppose I have some of those. I could donate
I have
them.
about the same amount in my house.
Fill it up.
What
I
happened to
collect
the
them.
old dolls?
They're still
I see
in storage.
absolutely
They're just
nothing
kind of
wrong
buried in
with
there right now. If you use flash.
Flash, yes, no,
Yes.
Yes.
yes. Okay. Well, I've
That
got
couch is
flash.
incredibly comfortable.
It really
It really-
is.
I know people
It's super squishy.
were thinking that it was gonna be like it's very
Rock
springy.
hard.
Yeah, no.
It's not. There's actual springs in there.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
great.
5, 4, 3,
And they're not
2,
poking through,
1.
so.
No.
Well, are we done? Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Was it-
You moved, I think, or I
Was it too
moved.
overexposed?
I'm not sure, let's take a look at it.
You moved right as it was taking
I
the
think
Is
picture.
that what I did?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Do you mind if I take one as well?
Not at all.
Let me-
Miss Mary, would you like to be in the photo? That would be nice.
yeah, that's a
Come on,
mess.
Mary. Do it for old time's sake.
One,
That's a
2,
mess,
3.
all right. Yes. That way.
I don't see anything.
I could try it.
We haven't gotten any. I wonder if it's the red light bulb, because the red light bulb is new this year.
I could turn that lamp off.
Yeah. Did
See
you?
if I
Are
got
you
you.
gonna get a picture?
I can send it to you guys to ignore. I think
This is really nice. I like how this doll is looking at you though. It's just. Hi.
That doll, when we took that picture, we actually had a whole debacle where between
Is the head
my mom's
turned,
picture
or-
and your picture, it looked like the eyes had moved, but it was
Aw.
just a
it was
shift in
just
the light.
yeah.
So we debunked that one a little bit. Here, I'll try and turn that lane.
That's her.
And now you got a picture.
Okay.
you.
Oh dear, it dim. Got even different. Dark.
And was that with a flash?
Look at the flash.
No, you have to go away, otherwise
Away.
she's not gonna get in the picture.
Yeah, leave.
She's the villain in Mary's story. Alright, Mary, if you're with us, could you please get in the picture? I'd like to see you again.
3, 2, 1. That one took a hot minute.
Yeah, it did take a while. I was like, it's a
Me too. I'll try it.
Didn't get anything.
It's
with this
pretty
one.
dark in here.
Come on, Mary.
Once more with feeling.
Mary, we need you to add something for next year's tour.
She wasn't in the picture, but on
That
the
curtain.
preview, I saw
that curtain move. Did you touch the curtain?
Mm-mm.
That curtain definitely moved.
and I saw an orb go through on
Well,
the
I had the camera
preview.
pointing, so let's see what happens.
Or go through where?
Because you got the live picture preview thing.
And it was wiggly wiggly. It wasn't a straight line like a dust ball.
Alright, Mary.
That's
Wanna try one
funny.
more?
One
She
more?
came out brighter than you did.
Oh yeah. Well, the
Okay, Mary. You know what?
Alright, Mary.
Oh.
Last chance.
You know what?
Could
You know what?
stay
Hold
still?
on.
You're gonna do a video?
Are you ready, Mary?
Give us some video for next year. Come on.
Alright, Mary. I missed you. It's good to see you again. Anything? Alright.
I saw it.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary, we're gonna try our darndest to get you a new wooden brush.
I will talk to Bennett, I promise.
Oh, Jamie and I are already on it. We've got plans.
We're gonna contact the Amish. Just for you. She's like, who are the
Did you see
Amish?
it?
You're gonna have to mail a letter.
Yeah.
Perry your kitchen.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Thank you, Mary.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video. Maybe not.
Where is she?
Everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's closer to you than to you.
This isn't going on.
Not going off? Okay.
There's
And
no
this
magnetic-
is like not dust balls. This is fast moving, up and sideways and down and sideways again right there.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing it right in front of it happen.
Yeah.
like actually in front of the camera. Your phone.
How cool is that? Well, thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. I'm gonna stop the video now.
Wow. Can we see? Oh, you're gonna want to show her too.
Oh, she's gonna see it.
She's
This is gonna end up
gonna
on
see it for
monitor.
years.
Oh,
Oh, there you
wow. Okay.
You gotta try and take video in the Law and Order room while I'm talking. You see.
I remember the coldness there.
Is that the one with the big safe?
Yeah. Well, the jail door.
Jail door, sorry. Yeah.
They,
Yeah, but that's my. I'm gonna help out in that room.
all right. Oh,
Yep,
there she
there it
went
goes.
up top. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Are you not seeing it, Ed?
I missed it.
Right there.
I was looking someplace else.
Oh, okay.
Very cool.
There it goes.
She loves you.
Just keeps going. Just keeps
I love
going
her.
and going and going.
Have you ever figured out about how old she is?
No.
I'm thinking maybe like 13,
So teenager, not
Well,
a child.
because they said a little girl, but that's also like kind of subjective. And the way that she acts with Bennett, I feel like, and someone you said
There was
like,
also
group-
last year.
Yeah.
There were two teenagers, two
Did you see her go
teenage boys on the tour, and they held a conversation via flashlight with her that lasted for probably 10 minutes. So either she is more teenager or she has uncle, cousin, brother, or something that they reminded her of, I believe.
I'm thinking young teenager, so like
12,
12, 13,
13.
14. Yeah, somewhere around there. Which is why I always call her a young lady.
I'm gonna send that to you because
Okay. Can you email it to me? Because do you have Android?
Yeah.
Okay, well then it might be fine. Android and iPhone never send videos well. It's always like the
Yeah.
tiniest.
Or Dropbox it.
Yeah.
oh, I can Google Doc it or something. I'll figure it out.
Whichever. We'll figure it out. If you guys want to come over across the hall into this room, thank you, Mary.
We love you, Mary, even if Bennett doesn't.
So this is typically off limits to guests.
Right.
So you guys are getting a special peek into our break room, storage room, kitchen.
I like how you did this.
That was Bennett. So these are the signs that fell over on the little easels. As you can see, it would be very easy for them to slide down, but that's not what they did. I think it's stuck on that.
There we go.
The other incident that we had in here was Bennett had put some cookie sheets on the oven, and hey, Crystal,
Oh, he went off to.
what did he do that made them knock it over?
He just went off to. It was on the 23rd, and he was getting ready for a tour the next day. And he set the baking sheets on the oven, very fully on the oven. And he wandered off to another part of the museum to do some other work to get ready. And there was this huge crash, and they'd been thrown off the top of the oven.
Was it Mary, you think?
Perhaps. Well, because I think it was. Only
I
because
think it was.
the
Mary.
box that he had put the hairbrush in, because I looked for it myself. The box that he put it in, he had just stored it in here
Yeah.
before he put it in our storage out there.
Right.
So I think she's like, if you can't find it, I'll do it.
Nice.
Or she's just mad. The other incident was this big old coffee maker up there, the tin coffee maker. He had another incident where he was in the kitchen fiddling around with something, and he heard a clunk, and that big old coffee maker had fallen over and hit the wall. So hadn't quite fallen off the fridge, but fallen over and hit the wall.
Wow.
It's been there for years.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yes.
That's about it in this room.
Okay.
But welcome to our mess.
That's very organized. A very organized mess. Ed, you're taking stuff with you.
No, you're good.
Okay, got me.
You're clear now. Alright, you can head up.
You go first.
We going this way?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to Google Docs or that.
All right. So
I love Victorian stuff. I love the furniture, I love the colors, the pink walls.
So, I'll give you some basics. I'm actually going to turn part of this over to Deborah and Jamie because they have some personal stories about this room.
Oh, you're gonna stand over here. You're not gonna stand over there. Huh?
Nope.
No, we don't do that.
So, all right. So, welcome to the county services room. This room is dedicated to all of the county services that we enjoy and sometimes don't enjoy. The tax collectors are up there, but long and short of it, we have this section dedicated to the sheriff's office. We have the fire department, judiciary, more sheriff's office.
Well, they're going already.
And so we deal with some of the more powerful members of the county government in this room. Now, a couple of things that I would start with. So in 2012, when they started doing investigations here, they immediately started to focus on this room as a hub of at least two major entities, one inhabiting this side, one inhabiting this side. They sort of pinpointed the one inhabiting this side to the judge's robe. Judge Foley Williams, and the robe there belonged to him. He supposedly still inhabits it, and the reason that they verified this was because the medium who was there claims to have talked to him and been given a message to deliver to his wife. And when the medium delivered it to his wife, they wouldn't say what the message contained, but the wife immediately was like, oh my God, that's him, and verified it for them in that way. So supposedly he still inhabits that robe. Things have only gotten a little more interesting since then because we started researching and talking about a lot of the people in here in a way that wasn't done before I arrived. The wall of sheriffs that you see behind you has some very colorful characters in it. Suffice to say that they can be divided into three major categories. There were the sheriffs whose big, like at least on the surface, their goal, as you read it in the papers, was to be anti-moonshine, and that's these three gentlemen here. There was the goal on paper to be anti-crime, and anti-bolita and all of that, and that was these four people here. And then there are the remaining three who, on paper at least, they are very anti-corruption, and that's these three people on the end, right? Now, if you do some research beyond just the newspaper headlines, then we start to get a little dicey as far as those go. If you start to ask some of the old moonshining families, they claim that these people were on the take and they would gather them up every month and bust them regularly. If you get with the prosecutors who were involved with these people, there was a lot more corruption going on behind the scenes than you would believe. Again, allegations of bribery and all that fun stuff. Deborah can elaborate on some of that. Now, these gentlemen were really responding to the corruption that had plagued the sheriff's office since 1913. And Polk was focused on modernizing the sheriff's office, so that kind of corruption and book cooking couldn't happen again. Esslinger was all about trying to get the place nationally certified for ethics. We were among the 51st sheriff's offices nationally certified for ethics. And then Lima is trying to be as straight-laced as possible. He arrested his own son for drunk driving a couple of years ago. So that's at least the overarching story. Now, as far as hauntings go, when you start talking about these men, things start happening. Things like weird temperature fluctuations, and I might as well just turn it over to the people it was happening to. So, Deborah, would you like to cover the history, and then
Sure.
Jamie, you can cover your experiences?
So, I serve as a member of the Seminole County Historical Society Board of Directors. About 2.5 years ago, I was tasked with coming up with a fun and hopefully profitable fundraiser for the society. The idea that I came up with was a fundraiser which we called a Night of the Notorious Nine, where we had different actors and actresses in several of the different rooms doing a small monologue scene that I had written of an imagined moment inspired by their lives. One of the gentlemen that I chose, because he was somewhat of a well-known and controversial figure, was Sheriff Judson Luther Hobby.
Which one is he?
He is the one with the black bow tie, black tie and white hat, and almost the dead center. He served as Seminole County Sheriff. He was a Democrat who was elected in 1952, ran 3 more times after that, and was elected 3 more times. He also has the distinction of being the only sheriff in Seminole County history who was removed from office by Governor Leroy Collins, first in 1955, on allegations of running moonshine out of the Seminole County Jail, taking bribes, and a bunch of other things. He was tried twice in federal court, and they ended up declaring it a mistrial. He was not found guilty or innocent because they couldn't agree, and eventually, because he had very good lawyers, he ended up having the trial dismissed after about 8 years because the judge in federal court said, if you haven't gotten a verdict by now, you're never going to get one. He resumed office. Time goes by. During the mid-1950s, going to early 1960s, Central Florida becomes a hub of organized crime activity, particularly Seminole County. The running theory is we know that the Trafficante mafia family out of Tampa had connections here in Seminole County. The theory seems to be that Seminole was a hub because it is the only place that has an inland port that connects via the St. Johns River to the Atlantic. So they were running all kinds of things. There have been allegations of everything. Definitely moonshine has been confirmed, but later on, particularly after Cuba, the Cuban Revolution in 1959 causes organized mafia to figure out some other way to launder their money and to do what mafia does best with those funds. We start to see rumors and allegations of things from human trafficking, prostitution rings, major gambling, particularly centered around a game called Bolita, basically Cuban lottery, and a whole bunch of other stuff. He is sheriff during this time period, and rumors are rife about him. It's written about in national papers. There's even a Senate hearing where there's testimony given about his administration. He has an FBI file. He is showing up, J. Edgar Hoover's guys are watching him. And yet he is incredibly popular. He is incredibly well liked, incredibly well respected by most of the white population within Seminole County in the 1950s and early 1960s. 1966, in November 1966, things begin to change because you have the first Republican governor, Claude Kirk, first Republican since Reconstruction, who is elected. Clerk runs on a platform that he is going to root out organized crime in the state of Florida. And he declares war via, there was a gentleman by the name of George Wackenhut who becomes his personal security czar, and they try to target all of these Democratic Dixiecrat officials, not just Hobby, they were all over the state, to get them arrested, hopefully, found guilty and toss them in jail, or at the very least get them out of office. So in November 7th, 1967, there's a raid on the Seminole County Jail. At the same time, Luther Hobby had been summoned with his deputy Willie Brown up to Tallahassee. It's at 4:30 in the afternoon. The governor has a meeting with him that lasts approximately 17 minutes. During that meeting, he's presented with evidence that has been gathered by the newly appointed state attorney, who was another Republican. He was a gentleman by the name of Dominic Salfie, who becomes the first state attorney of the 18th Circuit. And Hobby is given a choice: either resign and go quietly off into the night, or he's going to be removed from office. Hobby chooses to resign, comes back home, and this starts off what can only be described as a circus for the next 7 months. Hobby is not arrested until April of 1968. No, February of 1968. Trials in April, I believe. Eventually, he is only charged with several counts, 18 counts of taking bribes, basically being bribed with money from the Longwood dog track. He made the argument that they were not bribes, but they were payment that was rendered to him because he was conducting off the books, off the record, security accompaniment to move the money from the track, the large sums of money when they needed guard service, to be moved from Longwood up to the bank in Sanford. He eventually is found not guilty, although that trial takes about 4 years. He is found not guilty of that. By that point, though, he has already moved on. There's a complicated election because he decides to run for sheriff again in 68. It was a three-way race against Hobby. His successor, the guy next to him on the right, his name is Peter Milliot. He was an insurance salesman from Altamont who had no law enforcement experience, was not popular. His administration was not well received because he was seen as somewhat inept. And then the third candidate was John K. Polk, who was a Florida highway patrolman. He is a Democrat. He's an outsider, though. Eventually, Hobby decides to pull out of the race and throw his support behind Polk. according to his words, because he says if he runs, he knows he'll get elected, but the governor will just turn around and remove him. So he wants the good citizens of Seminole County to end up being well represented. Goes on, moves back eventually. He was originally from Georgia, goes back to his cattle farm up in Turner County, Georgia, which is in southern Georgia. Dies in 2005, I believe, at the age of 90 something. Now, this is why I selected him to be one of the characters in Notorious 9. He still has family here in Lake Mary. I brought up, and ironically, the scene that the author performed, that the artist performed, was protesting his innocence in our tableau, if you will. His family still did not like that. So they came and protested the event, and this kind of set me on a path to getting to know Hobby a little bit better. I did my first haunted tours here in 2022, about 9 months later. That particular night, we had a paranormal investigator with us who taught me how to use an EMP reader. That night, while I was giving my spiel, he called me a sassy girl. That was the nicest thing he's ever said to me.
Hobby?
Hobby spirit on the EMP reader. The second, last year, came back again, was because I have found a tremendous amount of research of things that they wish we had not found. Last year on the EMP reader, he told me he needed, what was it? Do you remember? I can't remember the exact wording. Do you remember what I told you?
Something about you needing a gag or something.
No, it wasn't a gag. It was, I needed to learn to keep my mouth shut or something like that. So that was not well. And while I was telling these stories, we had the temperature gun pointed directly at it, went all the way down to 24 degrees. So he was not pleased about that. This year, what we found out is there was a judge that served on the 18th Circuit, that same judge who was the state attorney, Dominic Salfi. He passed away in March of this year. And fortunately for us, Judge Salfi kept all of his records. Many of the things that had gone and disappeared, and when I tell you I've gone looking for these records, it's been quite an interesting thing where every time we've gone to the clerk of the court, we've gone to the sheriff's office, we've gone to various places, things that should exist have either been misfiled and have taken hours upon hours to be found, and we have found partials, or they've disappeared altogether. Fortunately, Judge Salfi kept all of his own records, and so I've spent the last 6 months combing through things. To give you an example, we even have his mugshot from when he was arrested, which everyone had insisted that had been lost. Thanks to Judge Salfi, who was later promoted to a judge, we have it. Now, one of the things that we found, did you tell them about the briefcase?
I told them about the briefcase in the other room, yes.
Okay, where it came from?
So, no, I didn't tell them where it came from.
Okay.
It's, so the briefcase that I mentioned in the other room where the light had been torn down, that's this one right here. And it belonged to Salfi, the person that she's speaking of.
Well, we think it was. Possibly, if it wasn't from Judge Salfi, it was the state attorney directly after him. We know from the design it was from the early 1970s, so we think it might have been owned by his, if not by him, probably his successor, who is a guy by the name of Bob Egan. When I dropped this off on June 29th, that's when all hell started to break loose in the museum.
Oh.
Did you mention the
The ballast light, yeah.
No, the back building and the power.
No, I haven't mentioned, I don't think I mentioned.
That day we had breakers going, it was that weekend.
Yeah.
Power tripping left and right. In the back building, the entire back building was off. The only place that wasn't was the lights that were over the senator. I think, although you didn't hear this story because it's one I usually tell, there's a spirit there that's known as Tio Juan. He's a Native American. He has sworn to guard that tree. I think that explains why that one was left alone. Everywhere else was dead. We've had all kinds of interesting things happen. We're continuing to have things happen because Judge Salfi's family is donating a large number of artifacts. I will tell you one thing that did become clear because of my research that we didn't know at the time was that we knew there was something going on between Judge Foley Williams and Sheriff Hobby. We knew they were contemporaries. We knew that Judge Foley Williams was considered one of the most upstanding, honorable men, not corrupted, in all of the 18th Circuit. What we did not know was what the personal connection was. And what the personal connection was is every time Judge Southey, and actually it was in 55 too, it was with the 55 case, the judge that was signing all of the arrest warrants, subpoenas, everything, search warrants, 95% of them were signed by Judge Williams. For Judge, definitely during the 67 investigation, but also some of them going back to 55. So there seems to have been a little bit of this give and take. Judge Southey this year, I don't normally do all the tours, but I did one at 7 o'clock because Judge Southey's widow and a couple of his family members came to take part, and I was in here with her. We had some recordings, which we will probably end up using next year, but I asked Bennett what he heard on them because I was using an EMP reader, and we both agreed that this year what I will be adding is I've gone from sassy girl to needing to keep my mouth shut to being called a big ass.
Oh.
So that's what he's called me this year. So Jamie, do you want to take over and share your part?
So, a couple of years ago, I think
2019.
No, was it 2019?
It was your
Middle
first
schoolers was
year.
2019?
Before COVID.
It was your
Yeah, I
first
know.
year, and you were nervous.
I'm so old. So I was in here practicing with Bennett. We were getting ready to have a group of middle schoolers come in and learn about paranormal investigation. There was a group of paranormal investigators that were going to come and help, and I was just here on like the museum's behalf, basically. So the day before that, I was going through practicing with Bennett. We were in this room, and I was talking about Sheriff Hobby and the alleged corruption, and
And I had one of those temperature guns that you're holding.
yeah. So he had a temperature gun pointed at Hobby's picture the entire time I'm talking, just for fun. And I start talking about the corruption, and the temperature starts going down and down and down. And so I get a little spooked, and so I started to use humor to kind of mask my fear. And I started talking.
64 is what we've been
Yeah.
reading for averages mostly in this room.
Yeah.
It did get down earlier to 58
Nice.
on that portrait, but
Yeah.
then
Do you remember what it was at when
uh,
this happened?
by the time we were done, it was in the 40s, mid 40s.
I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as the year I got 20 down to 22 or 23. So at least you have that.
Yeah. He just likes you more than me.
Oh, Hobby is my Mary. Yeah.
So
To Bennett. Bennett's
I got a
Mary.
little spooked by the temperature, so I started kind of using humor to mask my fear. So I started talking about the corruption and how he has a corrupt face, and it's not my fault that he's a corrupt face. He should blame his mom for his corrupt face. And I have since apologized several times, and I will apologize again. I'm sorry. I should not have dragged your mom into anything. And the temperature kept going down, so we were just like, okay, let's go. I'd rather be in the basement than in here. The next night, the middle schoolers come in, and we're in this room. Before we went into any room, they didn't want to hear any stories about the museum, so they didn't want to know, because we have some rooms, like the school room on the other side, where like nothing really happens. So they just went into different rooms, not knowing anything going in. Came into this room. They had the dowsing rods. I'm standing about here, and the paranormal investigator with them was standing about here. All the kids were kind of around here. And they had the dowsing rods.
What
You
are
guys-
dowsing rods?
So they're used as like a water,
Yeah.
Binding tool.
yeah. But people also use them in paranormal investigations.
Didn't know that.
So she has the dowsing rods, and she says, if there's anyone in this room with us, can you please cross the rods? And we watched as they slowly cross. I was like, okay. And then they said, all right, can you point the rods to where you are? And they slowly pointed right to me. And I was like, oh, okay. And all the kids start giggling, and they're like, ooh, you got a ghost. And I said, this makes sense, and I'll tell you why when we get there. Let's keep going. So then they say, all right, if you're still in the room with us, can you cross them again? I think it was that point, or maybe it was after they asked about
I don't
Bobby.
get it. That's why I made you do it, is because I wasn't going to
Yeah.
be here to do
Okay.
the tour.
I think it was after I had told them the story. They asked if it was hobby, and then the rods crossed again. But in the meantime, once I tell them about the story about what I had done, and I'm so sorry about it, I start to feel this cold spot about right here. And there's been a couple other times that people have felt a cold spot here. And keep in mind, I did pay attention to the vents. There are no floor vents, but there are these two vents. They were not pointing here, and they were not even on at the time.
Well, yeah, you can hear when the AC unit comes on because it's right there. So
Yeah.
like, it's not on right now.
Yeah, so they were not on at the time, but it was just this cold spot right in front of me, right where the rods had pointed, and I've never felt anything like that before. I never felt like anything like that since. Where it was literally you could stick your hand here and it felt like you were in a refrigerator, right here, normal temperature. It was crazy. It was just so condensed into this one spot. Eventually it went away, and since then I apologize to Hobby every time I come back. I think we're okay now.
I don't apologize.
Yeah. I don't feel cold spot
I do
now.
think
Well, and you get called an ass now.
Well, yeah, there's that. Now, interestingly enough, there seems to be some possible indication that Judge Southie's spirit might be kind of hanging around. He has strong opinions about Sheriff Hobby. His wife was here earlier, and she reported that she was there with her friend Abby. They were standing about where you guys were. While I was talking with him, Abby felt a gentle pushing Gail and her further onto this side of the room. He did not want them over there. And I can understand that because, I don't know that side has a very nice person.
And then you covered the book there.
I did not, and I'm
So-
leaving that for you.
Yeah, so the last thing and most recent thing that's happened is while I was gone, I actually went over to Europe in October, end of October, early November. And Carlos, this gentleman here on the screen, was here watching the museum for me.
Just set it right.
And this is the video of the day that he discovered that this book, which, had been slammed face down onto the floor of the case there.
Okay.
So that is right after, so I leave. Deborah asked me to put this briefcase in here because we had the ballast getting pulled down and everything. So I put the briefcase in here because Deborah
And
asked
then
me
that
to.
falls.
And then that falls down.
Well, normally when we get new items, they don't just go out onto the floor. They have to get a session, and then the
Right.
exhibit gets designed around it.
So he turns the light on, he notices the book.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on there?
Now, I noticed some orbs in there. Those weren't orbs, right?
Those are camera smudges. Yes.
Smudges.
Yeah, those are not orbs. All right.
So yeah, that's it for in here. So it's haunted.
You're good.
Okay.
I will be leaving you here because I don't do the basement with Nick.
You're
so-
coming with us, but she's
Yes,
leaving
you
the door.
guys. You're probably not going downstairs, but you guys.
I didn't know.
See you later.
Let's go to the handy.
All right. Go ahead. Yeah.
Bennett, I'm gonna go ahead and take off.
All right. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Nice seeing you all.
So,
Walk around.
who will be joining? That's the last stop in this building. Who will be joining us in the basement?
If you're a gentleman, Nikki will have no problem.
All right.
Basement.
So,
Two for the
Okay.
basement.
Cool.
So it's
You'll
up
follow
to
me
you.
this way. Yeah, we'll go down the ramp.
oh, let's see.
You've been there 3 times. And once I had is it called an EKG reader? What is that? Where you can actually see words?
They're really specific.
What was that called?
The one that shows words.
Yeah.
Moving or the cover?
They
I don't
posted
have one
like
of
those
those
at the
that
bottom.
Right,
shows the words, but
They
there's
did have one that year. When I went down to the basement,
I will
and
find
I actually got some angry words on it.
I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Whatever.
The Ovilus.
Yeah, we used
Yeah,
to have
they were
that
just
app
like-
on one of our.
The most famous one's called the Ovilus.
Okay. She was talking about how she uses it when Bobby speaks, says something.
Oh, you mean an EVP? Is what?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the one. I think.
I'm gonna use the men's room.
Oh.
You can go ahead with that.
On the basement?
Downstairs.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
A
someone's
little
gotta be
skittish
here
about
with you.
it. Take this if you want.
Okay.
There's
I
a
got it.
light that you
I got
can
it.
turn on
Okay.
there as well.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a light
No.
on the right side.
Hope he
You
wasn't
know,
gonna use
pee in the
it.
dark?
Okay, there's a bench right at the bottom of the ramp if you just want
Is
to.
he gonna be okay by himself?
Jamie, would you mind just, standing here?
Yeah.
Or did you want me to?
Down.
Okay.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
So if he's not going in the basement,
I don't think he's gonna try it this time.
Okay.
He broke his hip.
so
That's probably not a good idea for him right now.
Yeah.
You said an EVP, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's
so-
what I was thinking when she was talking about it, at least.
But my first time down in the basement, I had an EVP,
Yeah.
and I got a lot of antibiotics. No, well, two antibiotics.
So the entity that's supposedly down there has been nicknamed Mr. Nasty. We don't know if that's a fair moniker, but the investigator calls it there.
Okay.
The reason why is because people have a habit of getting scratched down here.
Very lucky I did get scratched.
So do watch your step as you join us down here. These are old concrete stairs. This is the boiler room of the museum.
No longer used as such, right?
No. Although it is warmer in here.
It is.
And it wasn't this warm when we started tonight.
I can't.
What temperature we got?
I'm getting 67, 66. So, here, if I just hold it steady, maybe it will be, yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, this is the dominion of an entity that has been called Mr. Nasty in the past. If you believe what the paranormal investigators say. We have had scratching incidents. The most recent was actually on a haunted tour 2 years ago. We had a woman come down here, and as I was talking about this tour and the history of it, so we had a paranormal investigative group who came down here starting in 2012, and they had some kind of angry entity. And then over the next couple of years, we get reports of people getting scratched, getting their hair pulled, nasty things, and it's usually blonde white women. And as I'm telling this story, but we haven't had that happen since 2016. They held a big crossing over ceremony, and then immediately I hear to my left, "Oh my God, I'm bleeding." And I look over, and there's 3 long gashes on this woman's arm right here. She's standing right here. She's an older woman.
Sometimes they got
Okay.
Was she
we're,
blonde?
we're okay. She was white haired by that time.
Okay.
Hey, how's it going?
He's gonna try it.
Watch is there.
Ed, I don't think that's a good idea.
All right.
I still don't think that's a good
Well,
idea.
you can hear from there. That's
Yeah,
so,
if you could just stay there.
as I was telling that story, I hear of the entity down here. Just cover it for a minute. So as I was telling the story of the entity down here that was all about the, scratching people and pulling their hair and that sort of thing, this is 2 years ago, 2022, I hear over my left shoulder, "Oh my God, I'm bleeding." And then I look over and there are 3 huge gash marks on this lady's arm. We immediately stopped the tour. I had to go upstairs, grab the first aid kit, get bandages, all that. I had to fill out a whole incident report because this lady got injured on the tour. There's nothing on here that would have caused any kind of injuries like that as she was coming down. We got I was shown one picture that they took of the scratch marks, and then I told them, "Hey, send that to me. I'll put it on the tour." And then I never received a copy of it.
Oh.
But that leads me to believe 2 things. If there is an entity down here, A, it wasn't what the paranormal investigators thought it was, and B, it was not gotten rid of when the paranormal investigators thought they got rid of it. they called him Mr. Nasty, and when they were doing the investigation in 2016, they had mediums with them who were saying, oh, well, it's a black pastor, and his family was poisoned by the KKK, and the person who planned it was a blonde white woman, and that's why he pulls hair and scratches blonde white women, right? We could never verify any of this through newspaper accounts or anything. There's no report of any kind of poisoning. There's nothing in that death records that matches any of those descriptions. There's no point at which a pastor's family dies all at once. So we could never verify any of that anyway. And then couple that with the fact that in 2022 it happens again. And we had in the previous year, 2021, Abigail Ferreira, who we mentioned had the orb activity in the other room. She came back and she has also been trying to explore her sensitive side. She claimed there was still something dark down here and she refused to enter the doorway. She went back up the stairs. So there is a possibility that there is still something dark down here. A little bit of the dark history of this, I mentioned the wood frame building. This boiler was also a huge point of contention because it obviously heats the water in building here. They never had that in the wood frame buildings over there. So it's possible that there's an animosity which is left over from that, and that could be a reason why it's in this room. This was the working area of the farmhands. There were 2 of them on staff here, and they were responsible for keeping the dairy cows, the pigs, the chickens, and also tending to some of the orange grove. The old folks here, if you could work, you were expected to, but it was really just stuff like tending the vegetable garden and things like that. So it's possible that, one of them might still be around, although, why they would be violent is anyone's guess. So that story is still a little bit of a lingering mystery of why nasty things happen to people down here. All right, I believe that concludes our haunted tour. Are there any questions for me before we end?
The boiler doesn't still work, does it?
No, it does not. Yeah, all of the piping has been disconnected, you can see.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
I like how you have the green light back.
Yes, we try and backlight it for these tours. We used to just backlight it, but then people started tripping on this thing, so we put the tape and the floor lights and all that stuff. Because I try not to fill out paper.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you thought you saw or heard anything. And I'll see y'all next time.